And welcome back here to the booth to Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. A great pleasure to welcome you along for the ride here. The format's modern. My name's Riley. I'm joined by Paul, of course, and it's great to have you as we explore more of this Wild West format. I can't wait to get stuck in. So let's get to it. Down to the feature match area for the next round here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. What's up? Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to continued coverage of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. You're in the booth with me, Riley Knight, and I've got the great pleasure and the privilege to be joined by Mr. Humph. It's Paul Cheon, and he's ready to get his teeth stuck into some more modern. On your screen, the matchup that we have seen already in the past yesterday, and we're going to see it once again here. We have, of course, Romão against Gerry Thompson. There is Romão, this guy, an absolute superstar, a titan of the game indeed from Brazil. And Gerry Thompson, one of the nicest men in Magic, if not on the face of our good green planet Earth. This guy does not muck around when it comes to being a genuinely super bloke. I'm a big fan of both of these guys, and we're going to see how things shake out for them. Paul, you've got the lists in front of you. What do the viewers need to know about this matchup?
Well, Gerry Thompson is looking to kind of play out his hand. Lots of spells. The deck is based around, of course, Young Pyromancer with a lot of basically the best spells that you can muster up in the Mardu color combination. And then after it plays its spells, it can reload with 4 copies of Bedlam Reveler. Carlos Romão, however, is playing the slightly tweaked version of kind of the Humans deck that's been the most popular deck of the tournament. But they're looking to go a little bit longer. They're looking, there's a lot of decks that are kind of trying to beat the Humans deck with 1-for-1 removal. Well, you know what's really good against that? Collected Company. So they're going further up the chain. They're not playing Ether Vial, and they're playing 4 copies of Collected Company to try to help kind of make these mid-range matchups a little better.
Relying a little bit more heavily on green is this Carlos Romão deck. He's also playing Avacyn's Pilgrim as another way to accelerate out those 3 drops. And Paul, we've seen an evolution of the 5-color Humans deck. I don't believe we've seen the best version of this deck so far, but it has evolved away. It's more of a Jeskai deck splashing green now, but now we're seeing this pull towards Collected Company again.
Yeah, there's a lot of different takes here. It's still unclear which one is better. I've seen the Ether Vial. It does help when you're playing against all these like crazy Blood Moon decks, but I've definitely seen both decks. And at the end of the day, you have access to 4 copies of Cavern of Souls. You have access to 4 copies of Unclaimed Territory. You can really just play the absolute best Humans and not really worry about what the mana cost actually is in those decks.
No, and one of the key sort of evolutions we've seen, or the key updates we've seen in this deck, has come from recently from Ixalan. This is what has pushed this deck to the very forefront of the modern format, with the addition of not only Unclaimed Territory as another pseudo Cavern of Souls, but also Kitesail Freebooter. So much of the interaction from all of the interaction essentially from the 5-color Humans deck, it comes staple to a creature, which is huge when you're playing Mares of Avabrooks or other Lord effects like Thalia's Lieutenant, what have you. If your Thoughtseize effect can also swing in for damage in the air, that's a great way to clock your opponent quickly.
Yeah, this Humans deck has proven to be incredibly resilient and incredibly powerful. It's a deck that can actually get people on turn 4 or 5 with, depending on the draws, because it has ways to kind of grow both its Champion of the Parish, and you have an Anthem effect in Thalia's Lieutenant. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of similar to like the Merfolk decks, right? You play out a bunch of creatures and you play out a bunch of lords. But I think it's actually better because on top of that, you have the Disruption, you have Meddling Mage, you have Thalia, and you have Kitesail Freebooter. You just have so many different ways to kind of slow your opponents down at the same time. So this is an aggressive deck that's just really, really good against the combo decks.
So both players tearing their opponent's hands to pieces here with copies of Thoughtseize and Inquisition and Kitesail Freebooter flying around. Looks like that Collective Brutality isn't going to be cast anytime soon. But look at this. Gerry Thompson has got off to an absolute flyer after Thoughtseizing and Inquisitioning Romão and turning his hand into something that looks a little bit more like a foot than a hand, to be honest. Thompson is now reloading, as you mentioned, and he's got a 3-4 prowess on the battlefield.
Yeah, this is the ideal start from Gerry. He cast a bunch of hand disruption spells, filled up his graveyard, and then played a Bedlam Reveler with an empty hand and drew 3 cards.
Yeah, it's
Carlos
insane.
has nothing.
There's no downside to Reveler when it's the last card you cast from your hand, and even when you do have to discard cards, Gerry Thompson's deck excels at playing out of the graveyard. Lingering Souls, flashing back things like the Faithless Looting, and of course Kolaghan's Command to do it all over again once you've got some creatures in the yard.
And it looks like he's choosing to do that right now. flashing back that Faithless Looting in the yard, triggering the prowess from the Bedlam Reveler, and it looks like he found another copy of Bedlam Reveler.
Yeah, this
Wow.
deck really, once it gets going, I mean, the thing is, it attacks the format from a very, very unique angle. It grinds so well. It grinds in a way that you often see out of black-green decks, but it's a lot less, it has a fewer weaknesses, I would say. It has fewer skewed matchups, but it has game against nearly the entire field, and that's in a big way thanks to the Blood Moons that it can also play in the main deck.
Yeah, it's just another take on a lot of these mid-range decks. You know, it's kind of similar to when you look at decks like Grixis Death Shadow, right? You have a lot of way to grind. You get the value from Snapcaster Mage, but this deck just looking to win with Bedlam Reveler. One really great thing about the Bedlam Reveler, too, is that it's kind of effectively a 2-drop in your deck, but you get to dodge a commonly played removal spell in Abrupt Decay in the format.
And Fatal Push as well. Both of those things can't tussle with the Bedlam Reveler, and it clocks you real fast once it's down, because, of course, Thompson's deck, the majority of it costs 1, and we're even playing things like Manamorphose to get those prowess triggers, churn through the deck, keep the gas flowing, and Thompson is just absolutely teaching Carlos Romão a lesson here. The third one as well! Gerry Thompson has drawn about a squillion cards off the top of his library here, and he's punching in for a huge hit against Romão now.
And one thing that we've seen, kind of with the humans deck, it's really good at kind of coming out quick, but it's really bad when it's behind. You know, the innovation that the Brazilian team, the Brazilian/Portuguese contingent has made is by adding a card like Collect a Company, which does help a little bit when you're behind. But even then, I mean, this board is just going to be really, really difficult for Carlos Romão to get back from.
This is too little too late here for Romão as he slaps down a Noble Hierarch, and following up Avacyn, the Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Now, Thalia's great on turn 2 against decks filled with 1-mana sorceries and instants, but right now here, she's not going to do a lot of work.
Yeah. And look at Gerry Thompson's hand. It is totally stacked. We have that Kolaghan's Command. We have that Dreadbore. And this is, I think Gerry probably just has the win here, right? If he can get both of the creatures off the board, he can use the Kolaghan's Command to get the Thalia off the board here if he wants.
Going to see a Dreadbore here, costing 3, of course, thanks to the Thalia Thorn of Amethyst.
I think Carlos is already just getting ready to scoop here.
He's got a ready to action here. He's very, very ready for it. All Gerry Thompson really needs to do is show him a way to punch through those final points of damage.
But I don't think he found it. So,
well,
you know, he gets a chump block. He goes down to, I think those are 5/6 Bedlam Revelers.
I think thanks to the Faithless Looting, and Carlos Romão has seen enough. A tidy win there for Gerry Thompson. Mardu Pyromancer once again showing it's got the chops to tussle with the best in the modern format. Well done indeed to him. A well-deserved victory. But of course, he's still got to clean it up and win another game on the trot. And Romão will be doing everything he can to stop that. You're going to see it unfold live on your screen. We've got to go to a break, but on the other side of it, of course, you'll see Thompson Romão lining up for game number 2. We'll see you back here very soon.
Somebody made a pitch for Vampire Conquistadors, and that was the very bare bones nugget of Ixalan coming into being. If all you're doing is playing the card game, you're seeing that world through a bunch of tiny little windows. The art book is a view into who these characters are, what they're doing here, how these cultures fit together.
I mean, I'm super proud of this world. James and I both worked on it really closely, so I think it's going to be amazing, and I think once it finally hits, the fans are going to be blown away.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers monthly limited and constructed events, which lead to the yearly Magic Online Championship. Download Magic Online at mtgo.com and start earning the points you need to enter.
Welcome back to continued coverage of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. It's great to have you along. My name's Riley and I'm joined by Paul Cheon. Paul is, of course, a member of the Wizards R&D team, and it's great to have him on the coverage team this weekend sharing his insight as we delve into Modern, the greatest format on the face of the earth, in my view. Paul, I'm sure that many around the world would agree with me there. Right now, we're going to check back in with our feature matches on the floor. It looks like Thompson is ready to go up against Romão once again. We saw Thompson get up in game number 1. Do things change a lot post-board here, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. I think Carlos has a lot of great sideboard options. And even when I I did a deck tech with, Willie Edel and Marcio Carvalho, and they were telling me, you know what's actually the coolest thing about this deck? It's the sideboard. So really interested to see kind of what Carlos decided to kind of bring in for this matchup. Common cards that you see in the sideboard are cards like Izzet Staticaster. And when you're looking at Gerry Thompson's deck, we're talking about a deck with 4 copies of Lingering Souls. We're talking about a deck with 4 copies of Young Pyromancer. And the entire deck kind of revolves around those cards. So I think Staticaster is an excellent addition, out of the sideboard here.
Romão kicking things off with an Avacyn's Pilgrim. Haven't seen this fellow around for a long time.
Yeah, you typically don't see this in many of the 5-color humans decks, especially the ones that's playing Ether Vial. But the reason to play it is if you're looking to ramp up and play cards like Collected Company, then you want to increase the chances of being able to play that on turn 3. So you just play a few more of the 1-mana creatures. And
obviously Pilgrim is a better choice than Birds of Paradise because it is, of course, a human. There he is, little bald head. Haven't seen him around for a long time. A mainstay in Standard. I remember those were those good old birthing pod days when it was in Standard. But good to see him making an appearance in Modern as well. As we have a look at what Romão is working with here, as he's in the process of being inquisitioned by Gerry Thompson.
So if you noticed, actually Carlos decided to play Avacyn's Pilgrim turn 1 over Champion of the Parish. And oftentimes when you have Champion of the Parish, you would play it on turn 1. But Carlos wanted to just make sure he can get the ball rolling, play multiple spells in one turn. And I think his plan there was to play Avacyn's Pilgrim into Champion into Meddling Mage on turn 2.
That'll be a tidy little sequence there. But Thompson has put a spanner in those particular works as we see Chris Bakula hitting the bin there. Of course, Meddling Mage, the original invitational card for Chris Bakula, been reprinted there in Alara Reborn. Things have changed up a little bit there.
It looks like he found another copy of Meddling Mage.
Easy. Very easy game, this. Magic the Gathering. Very easy game when you just rip the cards.
That always happens, by the way.
That's exactly how things work.
You thought he's their best card. Well, guess what? They just have another copy.
Another one hot and fresh off the top of the library here. Now, Romão's having a think about what he's going to name. Meddling Mage is at a premium after you've cast something like a Kitesail Freebooter, for example. You snag their best card, and then you name the one you don't want to see here.
I think Thoughtseize might be a reasonable card, but that's like a pretty... It's kind of hard to parse out here, but, Gerry does know Carlos has access to that Colligan's Command... Collected Company in hand, and Carlos can play that turn 3, so Carlos might be a little bit concerned about, potentially a Thoughtseize coming out this turn.
Now, what's happening here for Gerry Thompson is he deploys a Young Pyromancer, a very unusual state of affairs for Thompson in the fact that he doesn't have any cheap point removal. This is a deck that is overloaded with Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt, what have you, but right now he's looking at a rather clunky Liliana of the Veil.
And here we go. Turn 3, Collected Company. This is an absolutely explosive start out of Carlos Romão. What is he going to find off this company?
He is leaving Thompson in the dust here. I can see Phantasmal Image. I can see Kessig Malcontents as a way to really turn up the heat.
He's got so many different options. He has a Kessig Malcontents. There's a Phantasmal Image. He can choose to deal a ton of damage that way.
That's 10 damage upstairs.
He can also just have a million Meddling Mage. Oh, he can use the Phantasmal Image to copy Meddling Mage if he thinks, Gerry could have other spells. But I'd probably be looking to be really aggressive here. Just be mindful of the fact that Gerry could potentially have an Anger of the Gods next turn. So if you can find a way to have multiple creatures survive, that would be nice. No matter what, this Champion of the Parish will be a 4/4. And what did he name?
Thoughtseize.
He did name Thoughtseize. Okay, nice.
Well done. Shooting from the hip. There he is. Paul Cheon blowing the smoke out of those pistols as he absolutely cold calls it. Well done indeed to you, my friend. Malcontents, a recent piece of technology for the 5-color humans list. May have caught a couple of people off guard, but a little bit of draft chaff, Paul, for the people who've dug out of the old collections here.
Yeah, I remember when I was first was kind of preparing just making sure I was on top of all the new decks of the format, and picked up the Humans deck, and I was like, Kessig Malcontents. I have never heard anybody talk about this card in Modern. What is it?
Is this the green card that makes wolves? Like, what's going on with this card?
But if you look at this card, it is the deck that kind of it is the card that makes you fast enough to deal with a lot of kind of the linear strategies, and it gives your deck a decent amount of reach as well.
Huge hit here for Carlos Romão as we see the...
wow, look at this start.
Yeah, the Malcontents have come down, turned up the heat, and the Mantis Rider is getting busy as well. I don't know if he's got one. He's just drawn an absolute blank off the top in Thoughtseize.
Oh, my.
Rough stuff here for Thompson. All the karma in the world can't get him over the line in this match, as we see, in this game, I should say, as we see. Double Collective Brutality. Well, that's something for the Thoughtseize to do.
Right. So he can use the Collective Brutality to get the Meddling Mage off the board. Maybe gain some life, because he does have a ton of cards to throw away. But I think this is probably just way too much on the board. However, he will be able to make 2 tokens off the Young Pyromancer, which should be able to give him some chump blocks against that Champion of the Parish.
That's very true, and that's one of the reasons that Thompson, I think, was looking to get on the board with the 2-1 last turn, Paul. He wanted to gum up the ground as much as possible. That Mantis Rider is going to continue to be a thorn in his side here, as we see him go down to 4.
Wow.
But he's got to deploy his cards.
Yeah, he's going to cast that Collective Brutality. He's probably going to go up to 6 here. He does need, to get a little bit of that life back, and he will have a few decent blocks. The Kessig Malcontents, while it's good at doming the opponent, it is not really good at attacking through these Pyromancer tokens.
I think one of the key plays with the Malcontents is as the final card that you cast.
Right.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier on in the day when I was having a chat to Tim about this deck. It doesn't have the reach that you'd expect of an aggro deck. It's great at dealing the first 15. We've just seen it do that. Malcontents is a way for it to push through those final points.
Yeah, and that's why people do choose to play this card. And Gerry actually has a Bedlam Reveler in his hand, so this Collective Brutality is even better. Because of that. I'm just loving all the synergies.
Yeah, the Mardu Pyromancer deck, it's not flashy and impressive on the face of it, but once you actually see how all of these cogs intertwine and come together, it's quite incredible.
And the last card in Carlos Romão's hand is a Thalia's Lieutenant.
Oh, dear. Okay, well,
wow.
This little pantomime may be coming to an end here, as Romão has a perfect follow-up play and a Thalia, Guardian of Thraben
Gerry
as
Thompson
well.
has to block all of the ground creatures. If Carlos Romão plays Thalia's Lieutenant, Mantis Rider will get in for 4, and every single one of Carlos's creatures will be threatening lethal here. So I imagine he's going to drop the Lieutenant on the board and just attack with everything, leaving Gerry with an empty board.
Romão
and
there.
this Thalia's Lieutenant turns that Mantis Rider into a 4/4, meaning Anger of the Gods is no longer an out.
It's not an out here for Thompson. And unfortunately, yes, indeed, that even that Pyromancer is going to be on chump block duty, as we see now the Guardian of Thraben come down. And it looks like her Lieutenant is going to come down as well. So a flavor victory for Carlos Romão, in anticipation of what I imagine is going to be a real-life Human Earth game victory as well.
Wow, Thalia and her Lieutenant, very fitting here.
Yes, indeed, as these 3 beaters come in.
That's a 7/7 Champion of the Parish. He didn't even play at turn 1.
No.
He waited.
Didn't need to, mate.
Yeah.
Didn't need to. So huge plays here for Romão. We saw the power of Collected Company. Some people have had a good old giggle about the fact that Ether Vial has hit the bin in this deck. But, I mean, Romão's shown us what this card can do.
Yeah, and Gerry Thompson down to 2 life. Oh, and a token.
Yeah, he blocked with the Young Pyromancer instead of the token.
I see.
Bedlam Reveler, discards, draws 3 cards, Thoughtseize,
another
Reveler, and that is that for Gerry Thompson. Packs him up, and Romão very, very handily equalising against Gerry Thompson after an explosive start. And Paul, we did see Romão here. He started on the play, and was that crucial, or was his draw just very, very good against what Thompson was doing?
Being on the play is huge. But I think one of the big moments in that matchup was the fact that Carlos Romão was able to draw another Meddling Mage after it was Inquisitioned, which allowed him to name Thoughtseize. And Gerry did have the Thoughtseize in hand. Gerry's plan was to cast Inquisition into Thoughtseize to get that Collected Company. Maybe if Gerry decided to turn it around and lead with, most of the times people lead with Inquisition because Thoughtseize is likely to get the card later. But with the existence of Meddling Mage, had he led with that Thoughtseize, maybe he would have just taken that company right away and followed that up with an Inquisition.
Well, he paid the price in any case, and he's gone down at a game now, 1-1 between Thompson and his opponent's Carlos Romão. We're going to move over now to a back table and have a live look-in between Pascal Vieira, undefeated with 2 draws, and Radek Kaczmarczyk here. Kaczmarczyk on blue-red control. He is running the Madcap Moon finishing package, and Vieren is on Pyromancer. A similar strategy, but with a different angle.
Yeah, and we got 2 copies of the Awoken Horror on the battlefield.
Oh, dear.
And Radic is currently at 15. So this is 14 damage. Does Pascal have a Lightning Bolt to finish Radic off this turn?
Vieren has really run the tables here in Bilbao throughout the weekend, both in draft and in constructed rounds. This deck is well positioned, thing in the eyes. So people have been trying to break it for a long time. Along with Mardu, with Young Pyromancer, these cards have just been begging to be taken advantage of in Modern.
Here we go. 14. 14.
Easy.
Radic still has the possibility of finding Madcap Experiment and playing a Platinum Empyrean. He actually has one in his hand. If he has an 8th land, I believe, he can play it from his hand, but I don't think he found it.
Well,
there is a Madcap Experiment, though.
Madcap Experiment, Platinum Empyrean, and a copy of Spell Snare, in addition to 2 copies of Blood Moon in Kaczmarczyk's hand. Not the best card in this matchup, you would have to say.
He can actually play Blood Moon to try to play around counter magic here.
Well,
Wait,
instead, he's just going to pack them all up. There he goes. Okay, no, not even going to contest it there. Kaczmarczyk going down in game number 1. Pascal Vieren handily doing very well to get himself up a game against his opponent there. And look, it looks like Blue-Red has come ready to tussle, because we've seen a number already, Paul, of these Blue-Red control decks. They all vary in the way that they're looking to close out a game, but that core of blue interactive spells, Cryptic Command all the way down to Opt, in addition to Red Disruption, Lightning Bolt, and the finisher, this is the way that people are choosing to win these games.
Yeah, and what you're going to see after sideboard, it's going to be very, very close. But Pascal, I think, has probably the slight edge because he has cheaper threats, right? He has access to the Young Pyromancer along with the Thing in the Ice. And I don't think Radic has a lot of those options as well out of the sideboard, because as we discussed earlier, his sideboard is more of a transformational plan.
Yeah, he's got the Through the Breach into Emrakul's sideboard plan. Also, Pia and Kira Nalar, Chandra's parents can come up the ground and also get in for some points here and there. But I do like Vieren's position post board, negate, dispel, what have you. These cards are all excellently positioned against opposing blue decks, and I mean, we'll see how things go. We'll see if the unbroken. There
has been a lot of upsets so far. So
yeah, that's very true. In our previous round, we did see Tron go down to blue-red control. We saw Tron go down to Abzan. We saw Tron get up against blue-red control. So there's been upsets all over the place. But right now, it's down to Thompson and Romão. A close matchup this, and the Brazilian has broken serve now against Thompson, 1-1. Inquisition of Kozilek coming down.
Nice hand out of Carlos here. Good mix of creatures, and he's got both the Cavern of Souls and the Unclaimed Territory. Can play what he wants. Although, actually, this is a little bit awkward, right? Because he's got that Phantasmal Image in hand. And Phantasmal Image, while it synergizes well with a lot of the other creatures in the deck, it is not a human. So it is tricky at times, because if Carlos chooses to name human on both of his lands, he can play the Meddling Mage, he can play the Static Caster, but he can't play that Phantasmal Image out of his hand.
And if he chooses not to name human with it, then of course he cannot cast those other cards because of their prohibitive mana costs. We do have an update, Paul, from the back tables. I can tell you now that Daniel Griffensteiner, who is playing Ad Nauseam, has beaten Brian Brown-Duin. Brian Brown-Duin was not able to Brian Brown-Duin it, and he's gone down, moves down to 9-4 now. He's playing Lantern Control. So, good guys win, I'm sure many people would say. Oh, no, on the other table, I've just got it in my ear now. Unfortunately, bad guys win on the other table. Lantern Control doing very, very well in the hands of Luis Salvato. He's beaten Christian Calcano. The human calculator has gone down with Bogles. Unfortunately, for our good friend Maria Bartholdi, she'll be needing a fair bit of consolation now, as Calcano has not managed to get up and about here.
And Gerry with a very ideal start here. He's got the Hand Disruption turn 1, followed by the Young Pyromancer. Now, Carlos Romão does have that Static Caster, but does Gerry have another Hand Disruption in hand? Wow, multiple Hand Disruption spells here. This is an amazing start out of Gerry Thompson. He can strip Carlos of all the relevant threats in his hand here.
But he has to deal with his Thalia first. It's going to mean that all of this stuff is going to cost extra, but he's going for the Inquisition.
He's going for the Inquisition, and I think you have to get that Static Caster out. Now, Carlos does have a lot of other threats in hand, but that Static Caster is the card that he really needs to deal with.
This is actually a tough position for Thompson. He has had a great start, Paul, but now these Meddling Mages can really do what they do best and start their meddlesome ways, because we're going to see them come down and start naming things like Lightning Bolt, and that's going to be a huge problem for Thompson.
Yeah, the thing is, though, you're playing against the Grixis. You're playing against a Mardu deck. There's so many different removal spells Gerry can have. Do you name Fatal Push? Do you name Lightning Bolt? You know, like, what do you do? I would guess Lightning Bolt is probably the first thing you name, but it is difficult, especially when you don't have a start with Kitesail Freebooter, which it looks like Carlos likely boarded out because of just kind of the excessive amount of removal that Gerry has in his deck.
Yeah, Thompson is playing a deck that is absolutely flush with cheap, efficient removal. This is the name of the game here for Mardu Pyromancer. It plays a huge number of 1-mana spells that are looking to fill up that bin nice and early.
What do we name?
Here comes Chris Piculo, the Meddling Mage, 2/2. Name a card, can't be played. It's as simple as that, and it is such an important piece of the puzzle here, Paul, for the 5-color humans deck. Without this, I don't think the deck would be anywhere near as successful.
Right. I would guess that he probably goes with Lightning Bolt. He's already played a couple copies of Inquisition. It's just the most likely card that Gerry probably has in hand. So that's probably the card to name here. He doesn't really care about a Thoughtseize here to protect kind of his hand. He just has a lot of different options. Even if Gerry uses a hand disruption spell here to get something out of Carlos's hand, Carlos still has a decent follow-up. So what did he name with that Meddling Mage? We will
find out soon enough here. Liliana off the top here for Thompson. Oh, look, he's keeping his hand hidden from everyone. He's playing those cards very close to the chest. Doesn't want us to get a look at that. But right now, you would imagine that he's finding a way forward now that this Meddling Mage has hit the battlefield. And Meddling Mage has indeed named Lightning Bolt, which means that Thompson doesn't have a way forward with that burn spell.
Carlos Romão, just the master of that Meddling Mage.
Oh, he's got the soul read. He's got the soul read. But let's come back to this point. I mean, I think that Meddling Mage is a key component of this humans deck. I don't think it would function in the way that it does without Meddling Mage.
Yeah, it just I mean, all the 2-drops, they're just so disruptive, right? You have the Meddling Mage, you have Thalia, and you have the Kitesail Freebooter. Just all of those are just so good at just kind of interacting with your opponents.
How does this deck ever beat a deck like Storm without Meddling Mage? I mean, it can put a very quick clock down. I guess a card like Thalia is also very good against it, but it's just lights out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's lights out against so many of these linear combo decks, and the fact that Meddling Mage is one of the key cards in this deck, it speaks to the way that the 5-color humans deck, it really tussles with the format in a very unique way.
Yeah, so now Carlos has an interesting choice here. So he can play a Thalia's Lieutenant, and if he does, then the Thalia can attack through all those tokens. I don't think Carlos is interested in attacking with the Meddling Mage, because that would trade with the Pyromancer. Or no, maybe he is. Okay.
All right. He's going to get busy here. We know that...
this does put Gerry to the test. Gerry can just go, okay, you know what? I really want to cast my Lightning Bolt. I want to get that Meddling Mage off the board, so I will double block here to get that Meddling Mage off the board. Otherwise, he just takes 6 here.
It does free up his hand, and he does need to get rid of that Thalia. It doubles the cost of most of the cards in his deck.
Right. But without the young Pyromancer, he just, loses that engine of being able to chump block all of Carlos's creatures.
Now, Thompson knows that Romão has the second copy of Meddling Mage in hand, so the window for him to operate some kind of disruption is a little bit constrained as we see Sacred Foundry enter the battlefield from Thompson, the single white land in his deck. No planes, no Godless Shrines, nothing. And this is because Thompson's not hugely interested in casting many white spells. We call this Mardu Pyromancer. The only white cards are Lingering Souls, which, of course, can be cast for black out of the bin, and Wear Tear out of the sideboard, which, of course, can be cast for red on the shadow mode. So not a huge reliance on white mana, just the very best in black.
Oh, that was a
push off the top.
Draw.
Fatal push off the top is huge here, Paul. Enough of my whiffling and waffling. This game has just picked up an entirely new angle because Romão's Meddling Mage is now not going to have the same impact.
Absolutely. And now Gerry has the ability to deal with both of the creatures on the battlefield. And if Carlos Romão chooses to play a Phantasmal Image next turn, the only thing he's going to be able to copy is that Elemental token.
That's no good. No bueno. Because Thompson here can actually snap off the removal in response to the meddling, in response to the image. It's going to come down as a 2-mana 1/1.
And Gerry didn't even play to land in his hand because what he can do here is use one of the removal spells, point it towards the Thalia, then follow that up with the Fatal Push.
Meddling Mage.
So I think Gerry needs to respond here to the Meddling Mage and just kill both of the creatures that Carlos has on the board.
Yeah, I like this. Here we go. Lightning Bolt on Thalia.
Unless he just thinks Carlos is not going to name Fatal Push.
Oh, mate. Is he going to run the risk?
Is he letting it resolve?
Gerry Thompson. We know that Carlos Romão has that soul read. We know that he's got the soul read.
Because it's even though Gerry used one of the lightning bolts, Carlos might just name lightning bolt again because there's still 3 more copies in his deck. So I can totally see him just say lightning bolt again.
Well,
unless he just decides to go fatal push. This is really exciting. What did he name with the meddling mage?
He didn't name fatal push.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I think he named lightning bolt.
Mystery solved here. I don't think he did because he would have used the same. He would have used the same token. He named Bedlam Reveler.
That's a very reasonable name here.
So Thompson, who is always looking to get value out of the graveyard by filling it up nice and full, is not going to be able to leverage that mana advantage from Bedlam Reveler. Well, maybe he is. The Liliana of the Veil's coming down to take care of the meddling mage, and all of a sudden Thompson is his snoot is well and truly in front of this game.
Did you see what was in Carlos's hand?
He's just drawn a collected company.
He has a collected company here.
So collected company in a position to completely change the texture and fabric of this game here. Also holding on to, I think, a Phantasmal Image, 2 copies of Phantasmal Image, in fact.
And this is the change. This is the innovation that Willie Adel made to kind of combat these kind of more mid-range decks.
Because an Ether Vial right now would do nothing. Nothing is what it would do. And Collected Company is going to build out a huge board for Romão here. He's going to get his pick of the crop as well when he has a look at those top 6. So Thompson's got to find a way forward to collect a flashback Faithless Looting here to start things off. Going to have to discard 2.
Yeah, so Thompson probably assumes that a company is coming here, but he's in a rough spot because does he pick up this Liliana? He's got land and Terminate in hand, so he kind of wants to keep that up in case Carlos does play a Collected Company. But does he want to pick up the Liliana and just get rid of the land? It looks like he's just going to choose not to use the Liliana because it's so bad if Carlos plays a company here.
So Collected Company now for Carlos Romão. We know that one of them's going to die to the Terminate in hand for Thompson. 6 off the top. 6 of the best here for Carlos Romão. What can he find?
How many hits?
I can see a Thalia. I can see a Champion of the Parish.
A Rest in Peace.
Okay, that's not the greatest.
You can't hit that one, but he does have 2 hits here.
All right.
He has a Thalia. Oh, and Thalia is so great here because Gerry can't play Terminate.
Terminator as well. That's a big hit here for Romão. He's feeling very clever indeed.
That is huge.
Any other removal spell from Thompson would be enough here with just 1 mana, but Thalia, you got to pay the tax, lady.
Yeah. And Carlos does have multiple Phantasmal Images, but he can only play 1 of them because all 3 of his lands are on humans. That's a little bit interesting. I would have thought maybe he would have chosen Illusion on one of those for, in case he drew multiple copies of the Phantasmal Image.
Let's hope that Carlos Romão chooses wisely here and does not name Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
Yeah, I feel like the former world champion will
probably see that line.
Pick the right one here.
Not going to go, get my opponent to pay 2 for each spell.
Yeah.
Can't believe no one's done this before. No, he does wisely choose Champion of the Parish, I would imagine.
So Carlos does have another interesting decision here. Does he want to just ignore the Liliana here and go for Gerry Thompson's life total? Gerry's already sitting at 9 life here. And Liliana is not really going to be that relevant until it gets to 2, which he could do on the following turn.
So Romão now in a position to push through some damage thanks to that Collected Company there. And we're seeing this Collected... people have actually laughed at it. People have said, no, this card is garbage, it's hot trash, put in the bin. It doesn't belong in this lean, mean, low-to-the-ground deck where Ether Vial can be so busted. But Romão is showing us the case for the defense here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Romão can push through damage.
Yeah.
Are we going after Liliana here, or just going straight for the dome?
It's tough. I would be inclined to just go for Gerry Thompson's life total, but at the same time, Gerry is down to just 1 card, but he's so close. Whoa!
Oh dear! Oh dearie me!
This is aggressive.
A second Thalia just to pump up that champion, and we're going to see her hit the bin as well.
This tells me that he's going to just go after. Gerry's life total here. He might just choose actually to have Champion attack Gerry and use the Thalia alone to attack the Liliana.
Which would mean that Thompson can save the Liliana from her doom here by blocking with the Elemental token, and he does just that.
So now Gerry Thompson goes down to 5 life, and he has to deal with a 4/4 Champion of the Parish, a Thalia, and a 2/2 Champion.
Bedlam Reveler off the top.
Can he play it for 2 mana? Can he play Terminate into Bedlam Reveler here? How many spells does he have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Terminate makes it 6, so yes, he can.
So that would clear out an attacker, put up a nice big blocker, not subject to Thalia's tax there.
And I would imagine that he's going to go after the champion of the parish here.
As the biggest threat. It can attack past the Reveler, so now we have 3 more cards fresh off the top here for Gerry Thompson. Goes down to the fruit shop and goes a nice big bag of oranges off the top.
The image, because I was going to say Carlos could have actually used the image to copy the Bedlam Reveler. But Gerry ticking up that Liliana takes that option away.
Very nice indeed, discarding Bloodstained Maya. And a Kitesail Freebooter reveals, oh no, the big Whiffsky.
Wow.
The big Whifferino.
Is Gerry turning it around here?
It looks like Thompson. I mean, this is what this deck does. It grinds and grinds. We saw Thompson come back from 1 life, stabilized against this very deck yesterday here, Paul, and it looks like he's going for that repeat performance here.
And it looks like here, again, we talked about it earlier, Carlos could have had the option to get rid of that Liliana, and it might cost him, because had he gone after the Liliana last turn, and Gerry stays at 9 life, Gerry still plays that Bedlam Reveler, and Carlos has access to that Phantasmal image to copy the Reveler. But instead, the Liliana got that last card out of his hand, and Carlos doesn't even have a good attack this turn.
And Romão guaranteed could have got rid of the Liliana, but he went for the attack to the face with the champion.
Right, and he also played that second Thalia to be even more aggressive out of his hand. Had he kept that Thalia in hand, he could have thrown that Thalia away and then used the Phantasmal image to copy this Bedlam Reveler.
So the greed here of Carlos Romão, I mean, he was so determined to end the game as quickly as possible, and he has fallen mightily now because Thompson is in a great position to push forward. My question now, Paul, though, what happens if Carlos Romão can draw his way out of this with something like a Collected Company?
Yeah, that's one of the few cards I think that Carlos really is looking for here. But Gerry Thompson's going to be so far up on cards. He does have that Young Pyromancer, and then he can play another Bedlam Reveler out of his hand.
Thompson can empty and refill his hand just as quick as winking here. 4 mana.
But Gerry is down to 2 life. And Carlos does have that Kitesail Freebooter on the battlefield.
3 more
cards. If he draws
cards.
a Thalia's Lieutenant,
Collective
he could
Brutality.
get it.
Collective Brutality off the top for Thompson.
Oh,
and the mana to cast it down to 1.
Down to 1.
What a match of magic we're seeing here. Gerry Thompson on the ropes, blood streaming down his shattered face as he goes down to 1 life, but he is still up and about. A Rocky Balboa performance here from Gerry Thompson. Mardu Pyromancer refusing to quit.
At this point, so Gerry Thompson is at 1 here. Will he choose the life gain option? Because if he doesn't, Carlos does have access to those Kessig Malcontents. He could still draw that as a card to potentially finish Gerry off.
So, Thompson, 3 cards in hand. Young Pyromancer, Collective Brutality, and he's playing... It's a Lingering Souls as well. Well, that's a perfect card to discard.
Yeah, I think he's going to go after one of the creatures and probably also look to gain some life here as well. That means that Gerry will go up to 3, meaning that even if Carlos draws a Kessig Malcontents, that's only 2 damage.
All right, he's taking a different approach here, Paul. He's chosen to discard and then flash back the Lingering Souls. That gives Liliana of the Veil an extra loyalty counter. It provides some excellent blockers for Thompson as well. But as you mentioned, Kessig Malcontents off the top is going to be huge. Carlos Romão,
Is it Staticaster also an
time?
Is it Staticaster is also a card? What does he have?
What has he found off the top of his library? He's put it. He is slow rolling the entire Magic world now as we have our eyes collectively glued to this screen.
Was it not a red card?
Untapping Thompson now back into his next turn. He's drawn another copy of Collected Brutality.
Oh, it was just a land.
A land off the top for the Brazilian.
Oh,
and
no.
Thompson can now pull ahead with this mighty card from Eldritch Moon. It's been so impressive in so many matchups in this format. It hoses burn, it tussles with control, and right now it's going to put Thompson right back in this match.
All right, so Gerry Thompson, I think, is going to choose the life gain option along with dealing the 1 damage to the Kitesail Freebooter. So this now puts him at 3 life, meaning that Carlos doesn't really have a lot of options here. How can he find a way to deal 3 points of damage?
And
Even
as well,
collect the company to double Malcontents, maybe?
And not enough here for Carlos Romão,
Wow.
who has to scoop them up. Gerry Thompson, what a performance from him. He moves to 10-3 and joins Pascal Vieira as one of the winners on the other table here in round number 13 of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. What a display of mastery we've seen. Stone cold mastery from Gerry Thompson. A well-earned victory from him. And Paul Cheon, an exhausting time for us. My goodness. What a match we've just had the privilege to see. 5-color humans. It is the boogeyman of the modern format right now. The boogie human, indeed. Right. However, very, very clearly a beatable deck.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so back and forth, and I think Carlos had it. And I think there were different lines that Carlos could have potentially taken that would have given him more of a chance to actually come back. Carlos kind of went all in there by playing the Thalia to basically give his champion of the parish a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, a little travel preps.
And then that Liliana took that Phantasmal Image, and he couldn't copy that Bedlam Reveler. So I think a couple of things could have been done a little bit differently to give him a chance. But Gerry played that perfectly, put himself in a position to come back. And yeah, the Bedlam Revelers did a lot of work.
Yeah, and Mardu Pyromancer, what a deck it is, and we're hoping to see more of it in the feature match area. But right now, we're going to go to a break, and we're hoping to have your company on the other side of it. Round number 14 is coming your way. More modern action as we draw ever closer, of course, to the spiky end of the tournament and the cut for Sunday. The top 8 will be coming your way tomorrow. My friends, as I said, we're going to go to a break. On the other side of it, more stuff here from PT Rivals of Ixalan here in Bilbao. We're looking forward to your company then. We'll see you back here soon.
Hello and welcome back to the News Desk. Maria Bartholdi joined by Rich Hagan. As always, some results from the floor for you as we wind down through the last couple of rounds of Modern here on day 2. Adriano Moscato, he started the day off kind of rough after coming in as our lone undefeated player, now at 10-3, so he's worked his way back up a little bit. Daniel Grafensteiner also at 10-3 after defeating Brian Branduin, who falls to 9-4. Luis Salvato at 10-3 after defeating Calcano. Calcano falls to 9-4. Reed Duke also on 10-3. Gerry Thompson, that amazing win we just saw there, advances to 10-3. Andrea Mingucci 10-3. Andrew Beckstrom, Pascal Bierin 11-0-2. So he's 1 win away.
Yeah, because he's at 35 points. 11 wins, 3 points each, 33. 1 point for each of the draws, 35. 36 is where we think someone might get in at the 12-4, depending on who IDs in the last round and so on. But once you're beyond 12-4, you got a great shout there. And certainly, if he gets to 38 points, he will be in. So Pascal Virin right now leads the field and is 1 win away from the top 8. Okay, I want to mention Michael Lagamba. You opened up with Adriano Moscato, someone who was right at the top early and then kind of fell away. Michael Lagamba still fighting hard. He's up to 10-3, having had a fairly rough start. You know, so he's 3-2 today. Moscato 2-3 today, but those 5 wins combined still leave them both in with a shout. All right, so that's some of the results. Plenty more coming your way. Who have we got down on the floor, Maria?
Brian David Marshall with Luis Salvato.
Anybody else on the team playing?
Luis Salvato, who is trying to make a name for himself as a control player in this field, and you are one of the players playing Lantern Control. Do you love this deck?
I think the deck is amazing, and I'm in love with that.
Now, you didn't think, in your mind, you said this deck is not going to be an option for me at this Pro Tour, right?
Yeah, the thing is, 3 months ago or 4, I met the deck and I started to play test, and I realized the deck has too good, too powerful, and I started to play and becoming better, and I also started to see the stream of Canister, who plays like thousands of games. But then in one moment I realized, okay, this deck is too powerful and it's too annoying for the opponent, and it's too tricky with the time in the round and the people playing slow, the people thinking that they can win when they can't, but you take like 10 more minutes to win. And I say, okay, they will ban something or they will release a new card, so I will quit this deck because I want to spend my time testing another thing.
All right, let me get this straight. You're saying you were testing this deck and it was too good, so good that you assumed something would get banned.
Yes, something will happen. I don't know what, but I believe the deck is too powerful. But the thing is, it's too hard to play and it's too hard to manage the time because you need to be super fast. So your opponent needs to be fast also. You need to know what you will do in your turn. Even when they pass, you do fast and pass again. So try to become faster, the match to finish.
All right, so you move on, you start testing some other modern decks. At what point did you realize you would play Lantern at this Pro Tour?
Like 2 days ago or 3, because I bring to the trip an Absan and start to play Absan, and then realized that Absan was not well positioned, or that's we thought, and start to play test the 8 rack. That's another deck. It's quite much better than Appear, and it's too tricky also to play. And then like 3 days ago, I was playtesting in the house, and 2 friends was playing, one Pedro Carvalho, and I don't remember against who, and Pedro was testing with Lantern. And when I saw the game, he looked at me, he saw my lovely ace with the deck, and say me, you want to play some games? Yes, for sure. And I play a few games, and he told me, you need to play Lantern. I will play Storm because I have a lot of experience and I don't want to play Lantern too much, so I give to you the Lantern and you can play if you want.
So this is a metagame breakthrough here. If you look lovingly enough at a deck, someone will give it to you to play at the Pro Tour.
Yes, that's for sure. That's what will happen.
So now the deck has treated you very well. You're X3 right now in the tournament?
I'm X3 with a score of 5-1 unlimited and 5-2 with the deck. I lost against Absent Company, a hard matchup, and against Storm. It's an even matchup. And try to do well because the deck is so hard to play. Even if you have test time, it's hard to play, hard to sideboard against the hate cards.
All right, well, you took down Christian Calcano with Boggles this round. Good luck the rest of the way, Luis, as you try to get your second Pro Tour top 8 in your career. But in the meantime, for a look at another deck, we have Simon Gertzen at the wall with Pro Tour champion Lucas Blahan.